So, let's go. Somewhere out there is an object so wrong that finding it should have meant we'd been holding the universe's rulebook upside down the whole time. And here's the part that should keep you up tonight. There isn't just one. There are at least 10. 10 real things. Not theories, not glitches in a telescope, not blurry maybe-somethings. Measured, photographed. Sitting in the data with their coordinates written down. Every one of them breaks a law we were sure was solid. A star too heavy to hold itself together. A planet circling a corpse. A ring of light bigger than the galaxy in the middle of it. And we're going to start with the worst one, because it doesn't break a rule about an object, it breaks a rule about time itself. Number 1, the universe breaker galaxies. Picture the universe as a baby, not a teenager, not a kid, a newborn, maybe 500 million years old, which sounds like forever, until you remember it's going to live almost 14 billion. At that age, the universe is supposed to be full of scraps. Little smudges of gas just starting to clump together, galaxies in diapers. So in 2023, when the James Webb Telescope opened its eye on that exact slice of time, everyone knew what they'd see. Tiny, ragged, half-formed things. That's not what came back. Webb found 6 galaxies sitting in that infant universe that were already finished, grown up. Some of them carrying 10 billion suns worth of stars, and one of them maybe pushing 100 billion, which is roughly the size of the Milky Way you're living in right now. The galaxy you call home took 13 billion years to become what it is. These things did it in less than 1,000th of that, before the universe was barely out of the womb. It's like walking into the foundations of a house the day after they poured the concrete, and finding a finished cathedral already standing there, stained glass, bells, centuries of carving. On day 1. One of the scientists on the team put it as plainly as you can. If even one of these galaxies is real, it pushes against the limits of everything we understand about cosmology. Not, weird. More like, the timeline we built the entire universe on might be wrong. Now, science did what science does. Other astronomers came back and said, hold on, some of these might be lighter than they look. Maybe there's dust fooling us. Maybe there's a black hole faking the brightness. The panic cooled a little, but it didn't go away, because some of them are still too big, too soon, too finished. And that's the thing about this whole list. You think the impossible stuff is going to be rare. Tucked in the corners. Instead, the very first object on the tour is questioning when the lights even came on. It only gets more personal from here. Number 2, R136A1. There's a line. Physics drew it a long time ago, and the line says, a star can only get so big before it kills itself in the act of being born. Here's why. A star grows by pulling in gas. The more gas it grabs, the brighter and hotter it burns. But that light pushes back. At a certain size, the star is shining so violently that its own glare shoves away every new scrap of material before it can land. The star basically slams its own door. The math puts that door at around 150 times the mass of our sun. Above that, you're not supposed to be able to build anything. The star blows the leftovers off itself. Then there's R136A1. It sits in a crowded knot of stars inside the Tarantula Nebula, about 160,000 light-years away, and when astronomers first weighed it, they got something insane. Maybe 300 suns crammed into a single object. In 2022, they took a sharper look and brought that number down to around 196. Calmer, more reasonable, still over the line. Still standing in the doorway that's supposed to be impossible to stand in. And it is not subtle about it. This one star burns about 6 million times brighter than the sun. If you swapped it for our sun, it wouldn't warm you. It would erase you. Its raw ultraviolet light would sterilize the Earth before you finish the sentence. So, how does something exist above the ceiling? The best guess is almost worse than the question. Maybe it didn't grow normally at all. Maybe 2 enormous stars found each other and merged into one monster, cheating the limit by smashing 2 legal things into one illegal thing. We made a rule for how big a single star can get. Something out there read the rule and didn't care. Number 3, 2I 525b. Let's shrink the whole story down. Forget galaxies, forget monster stars. One little solar system, one small, dim, ordinary red star, the kind that's the most common in the universe, so faint you'd barely notice it. A star that's small comes with a small budget. When it forms, it's wrapped in a disk of gas and dust, and that disk is the only building material any planet around it will ever get. A little star gets a little disk. And to build a gas giant, a Jupiter, you need to first pile up a heavy rocky core, fast, and then dump a colossal amount of gas onto it before the disk dries up and blows away. With a small star, there just isn't enough stuff. The kit doesn't have the parts. You can't build a giant. Everyone agreed on this? Then, a telescope found a planet called TOI 5205b. It's a full Jupiter-sized gas giant. And the star it orbits is so tiny that the planet is only about 4 times smaller than the star itself. Imagine a marble orbiting a basketball. That's roughly the size mismatch. By every rule we have for how planets form, the disk around that little star simply could not have held enough material to make this thing. The scientist who confirmed it back in 2023 basically called it what it is, a forbidden planet. Something that, on paper, should not be allowed to exist. And when telescopes sniffed its air later, it got stranger. The planet's atmosphere has fewer heavy elements than even its own star does, which is backwards from almost everything else we've measured. So you've got the universe forming galaxies too fast, building stars too big, and now assembling planets out of a kit that's missing the parts. 3 different rules. 3 different sizes. Same answer every time. The rule is wrong, or the thing in front of us is. Hold that thought, because the next object is the one where you find out which. Number 4. The Methuselah Star. This one has a name that tells you everything. Methuselah, the old man in the old stories who lived nearly 1,000 years. We gave that name to a star, and we did it for a reason that sounds completely impossible. When astronomers measured how old it was, the answer came back older than the universe. Sit with that. The universe is about 13.8 billion years old. We're fairly confident about that number, and this star, sitting only about 200 light years away in the constellation Libra, measured out at around 14.5 billion years. Older than the container it's sitting in. A child older than its own mother. A flame that started burning before the room it's in was built. Now, here's where this video quietly turns into something more honest. So stay with me. Because the Methuselah star is the moment you learn the difference between the 2 kinds of impossible on this list. When scientists measured that 14.5 billion year age, it came with a wobble, a give or take of about 800 million years in either direction, and the bottom of that range dips below 13.8 billion. Meaning the star was probably never older than the universe at all. The paradox was hiding inside the margin of error the whole time. More recent work tightened the number to around 14.2 billion years, and it still just barely fits. So here's the line you can carry through the rest of this list. Some of these objects are real model breakers, things that genuinely shouldn't be allowed. And some of them only look impossible because measuring the universe is brutally hard, and the error bars are wide. The Methuselah star isn't a miracle. It's a measurement that almost fooled us. The skill is telling the 2 apart. Keep that blade sharp, because the next object is the real thing. Number 5. UHZ1. Black holes are supposed to start small and grow slow. A big star dies, collapses, and leaves behind a seed. A black hole a few times the mass of the sun. Then it spends hundreds of millions, billions of years feeding, swallowing gas and stars, slowly bulking up into the giants that anchor galaxies. Slow and patient. That's the rule. Big black holes take a long time. In a galaxy called UHZ1, somebody didn't read the rule. We're looking at this galaxy as it was about 470 million years after the Big Bang. Deep, deep in that infant universe again. 2 telescopes teamed up to weigh what's hiding in its center. Chandra, which sees X-rays, and James Webb. And the black hole they found weighs around 40 million suns. That's already absurd for how early it is. But the number that actually breaks people is the comparison. In a normal galaxy, your galaxy, the central black hole is about 0.1% of all the stars combined. A rounding error. A seed in a fruit. In UHC1, the black hole weighs about the same as every single star in the entire galaxy put together. It's not a seed in the fruit, it's a seed the size of the fruit. The black hole and the galaxy are practically the same weight, which is like finding a newborn baby that weighs as much as its mother. There's no way a normal seed grew that fast. So scientists think this one skipped the slow path entirely, that instead of starting from a dead star, a massive cloud of gas in the early universe collapsed straight into a giant black hole in one move, a heavy seed. A shortcut nobody was sure the universe actually used. If they're right, UHC1 isn't breaking the rules of black holes. It's showing us we wrote the origin story wrong. Number 6, WD 1856 Ploufin 534b. Everything dies, including stars, including ours. And when a star like the sun dies, it does something cruel first. It swells. It puffs up into a red giant, hundreds of times its old size, and it swallows everything close to it. Mercury, gone. Venus, gone. Earth, probably gone. Anything orbiting nearby gets engulfed and erased before the star finally shrinks down into a hot, dead ember called a white dwarf. So, when you find a white dwarf, you already know the rules. The space right next to it is a graveyard. Nothing close. Survived. It all got eaten on the way down. About 80 light years away in the constellation Draco, there is a planet sitting exactly where nothing should be. It's called WD 1856 Plud 34b. It's roughly the size of Jupiter, and it whips around its dead star once every 34 hours, a whole year, faster than a day and a half. It is orbiting deep inside the zone that should have been scorched empty. The star ballooned up, should have swallowed this planet whole, and yet here it is circling the ember that should have been its grave. So either it's a ghost, or it wasn't there during the dying. The leading idea is that the planet wasn't always this close. It used to orbit much farther out, safely beyond the fire. And then, after the star died, gravity from other stars in the system, because this is a triple star system, slowly tugged and flung the planet inward, dropping it into the danger zone long after the danger had passed. It didn't survive the fire. It moved in after the fire went out and took the best seat in the empty house. And the reason this one digs into you a little more than the others, this is your own future. One day the sun does this. One day something decides what's left of our planets. WD 1856 is just the rehearsal, 80 light years away, already finished. Number 7. Hoag's Object. Most things on this list break a rule with brute force: too big, too heavy, too fast. This one breaks a rule by being too perfect. Picture a galaxy. You're probably picturing a spiral, arms winding out from a glowing middle. Now wipe the arms away. Leave just the bright core in the center. And then, floating around it with a clean gap of pure black, nothing in between, draw a flawless ring of brilliant blue stars. No bridge connecting them, no spokes. Just a glowing eye with a glowing halo hanging in space, looking less like nature and more like something switched on. That's Hoag's Object, about 600 million light years away, and it has been quietly embarrassing astronomers since 1950. Here's the problem. We do know how to make ring galaxies. You take one galaxy and you fire a second one straight through its heart, like a bullet through a target. The impact sends a ripple outward and pulls the stars into a ring. It works. We've seen it happen, but that crash leaves evidence. A second galaxy somewhere fleeing the scene. Debris, wreckage, stars moving at the wrong speeds. Hoag's Object has none of it. No bullet galaxy, no wreckage. The core and the ring are moving together too gently for any collision story to work. The most sensitive telescopes we have looked for, the leftovers of a crash, and found absolutely nothing. So, a galaxy shaped like the most deliberate thing you've ever seen got that way with no crash, no cause, no explanation we can agree on. And just to make it eerier, if you look through the gap in the ring, there's another ring galaxy visible in the far distance behind it. A coincidence? Almost certainly. Probably. We still don't know how the first one formed. Number 8, the pulsar planets. Here's a thing that feels obvious until it isn't. Planets orbit suns. Warm, shining, living stars. That's the whole picture. When we finally went looking for the first planets outside our solar system, that's where everyone aimed. At normal stars, like ours. The first ones we actually found were orbiting a corpse. Back in 1992, two astronomers found the very first confirmed planets beyond our solar system, not around a sun, around a pulsar, the leftover core of a star that already exploded and died. And not a quiet corpse either. This thing is a city-sized ball of dead star matter spinning so fast it completes a full rotation every 6 milliseconds. That's almost 10,000 spins a minute. And as it spins, it sweeps beams of radiation around like a lighthouse built out of poison. And circling that thing, bathed in killing radiation, lit by a strobe instead of a sunrise, are 3 planets. We name them like the dead things they orbit: Draugr, Poltergeist, Phobator, ghosts, and monsters. Now think about what these worlds lived through. Their star didn't gently fade, it detonated. A supernova. The kind of explosion that should have vaporized or flung away anything nearby. So how are their planets? The leading answer is genuinely unsettling. They probably aren't the original planets at all. They're a second generation. Worlds that formed afterward, out of the shredded debris of another star that got too close and was torn apart. Planets built from a graveyard, orbiting an executioner. The first planets we ever found beyond our own sky, and they told us right away. You don't need a living star to have the worlds. You just need wreckage and time. Number 9. Odd radio circles. Some objects break a rule. This one doesn't even fit in a category. We don't have a box for it. We had to make up a name that's basically just a shrug. Odd radio circles. In 2019, a radio telescope in Australia was scanning the sky, and it caught something that shouldn't have been there. Enormous faint rings of radio light. Perfect circles, glowing in radio waves, and completely invisible to every normal telescope. Point an optical telescope at the same spot and you see nothing. Empty, dark. Switch to radio, and there's a vast smoke ring hanging in space. And vast is underselling it. These rings are hundreds of thousands of light years across. Often, there's a single galaxy sitting right in the middle, and the ring around it is far larger than the entire galaxy. Imagine a ripple in a pond that's wider than the ocean it's in. So what makes a ring of radio light bigger than a galaxy? Nobody fully knows. And the honest answers are all guesses. Maybe it's a shockwave, so now a galaxy that blew out a colossal wind of gas, a single exhale lasting 200 million years, pushing a shell outward until it lit up. Maybe it's the echo of 2 galaxies colliding. Maybe it's a black hole at the center belching. Every idea explains some of them, and none of them explains all of them. This is the other flavor of impossible. Not a thing that breaks a law we know. A thing we found before we had any law to break. The universe handed us an object and we're still standing there trying to figure out what kind of thing it even is. And if a ring bigger than a galaxy makes you feel small, the last object is going to be a problem. Number 10. The Big Ring and the Giant Arc. Everything in this universe is supposed to be built on one quiet assumption. It's called the cosmological principle, and it's the floor the entire model stands on. It says that if you zoom out far enough, the universe is smooth, boring, the same in every direction. Sure, there are galaxies and clusters and clumps up close, but go big enough and it all averages out into a uniform, even soup. There's even a hard size limit on how large any single structure is allowed to get before that smoothness should kick in, somewhere around 1.2 billion light years. A researcher named Alexia Lopez has now found 2 things that ignore that limit completely. The first one she spotted in 2021, looking at the light of distant quasars. A vast curve of galaxies stretched across the sky, the Giant Arc. It is about 3.3 billion light years long, nearly 3 times bigger than the universe is supposed to allow. Then, in 2024, almost right next to it in the sky, she found the second one, the Big Ring. A colossal loop of galaxies 1.3 billion light years across, its circumference rivaling the full length of the arc. 2 monstrous structures the same distance away, sitting 12 degrees apart, both shattering the rule about how big anything can be. And these aren't single objects you can wave away. They're patterns woven through the large-scale universe itself, if they're real, and that's the open fight because some scientists think the human brain is just very good at finding rings and arcs in scattered dots, then the floor under the whole model has a crack in it. The universe might not be smooth and even at all. It might have a structure, an architecture, that our best theory says is flatly forbidden. Which brings the whole tour back to one uncomfortable idea. Over and over at every scale, a single star, a single planet, a galaxy, the entire shape of everything, the universe keeps building objects its own rulebook says are not allowed. And there are only two ways to read that. Either every one of these things is a mistake or the rulebook is. And so far, every time we've checked, it's the rulebook that keeps losing.